Hey, welcome to episode 42 of Superpowered Fancast. My name is Darren. First of all, I want to thank everyone who's been watching the YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and look for Fancast, you can find our feed and find these videos. I want to thank everyone who listens to the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud and Google Play and anywhere you get your podcast. I really appreciate it. And if you like the podcast, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel or leave a review on iTunes. I definitely appreciate it. I definitely also appreciate the feedback. But first things first, let's just go ahead and get into the news of the week. We're going to talk about some movie news. We're going to talk about some TV news, and then then we're going to move on. There's a lot of stuff that has happened, that is happening. But let's start off with Black Panther. I mean, come on. It's according to Box Office Mojo, Black Panther's sitting at over $562 million domestically last weekend, with another 41 million coming in. So that's the total. And then it opened in China to 66 million, which has brought in 516 million internationally. So now you're looking at a $1 billion film. Like, Black Panther is now sitting at over $1 billion, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop. It really doesn't look like the hype is gonna ebb anytime soon, because you got this weekend, even though you got Tomb Raider coming out, they're still projecting Black Panther to stay on top. And that would be, and what's really funny is last week, like, one of the latest records that the film has broken, it's actually pretty significant. Like, Black Panther is now the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to stay at number one at the box office in its fourth week of release. So now the film is now the second highest grossing superhero release of all time, and is now the seventh largest domestic release of all time. So it's hitting like top 10 numbers in a lot of markets, and it's all based on how great this film is. So I'm on board with it. I'm going to try and actually see it again this weekend along with Tomb Raider, and just kind of support all kinds of films that are coming out, because I love geek stuff and I love geek films, and I'm on board for it. So I just want to see if it hits that fifth week at number one. We'll see how that goes. So the next thing I want to talk about is the trailer for Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, that came out this week. Now, I absolutely loved that trailer. I love the fact that the first thing that they did was, they did Hogwarts. I mean, you saw Hogwarts. They had a bunch of, I don't know if they looked like oars, teleporting into Hogwarts to speak with Dumbledore. I love Jude Law's Dumbledore. I love his style. Like, I literally want suits like that. I love the fact that there's more immediacy to this plot. If you look at the trailer, there's I'm fascinated to see where the story goes, but it looks really interesting, everything that I've seen. So I'm, again, completely on board for Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. I want to see the story get bigger and progress, but I don't want it to lose the charm of Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander. So that's the thing I really want them to keep. Now, the next thing, which people have talked about, has been a little bit of controversy around. Ain't a little bit. There has been controversy around, and I can understand it. I mean, but at the same time, I'm a Star Wars fan, and I love Jon Favreau. So the fact that Jon Favreau is going to write and produce a new live-action Star Wars series for Disney streaming service, I am completely on board with this. I think it's an amazing idea. I absolutely love Jon Favreau as an actor. I love him as a writer. I love him as a director. So, I mean, this is from a press release that got sent out from Star Wars. That got sent out along with the story on StarWars.com. I mean, and according to Kathleen Kennedy, who's the president of Lucasfilm, she said, "I couldn't be more excited about Jon coming on board to produce and write for the new direct-to-consumer platform. He brings the perfect mix of producing and writing talent. combined with the fluency in the Star Wars universe. So this series will allow Jon the chance to work with a diverse group of writers and directors and give Lucasfilm the opportunity to build a robust talent base. Now, the fact that they said it right there is one of the things that is part of the controversy, but also I think in a way kind of quashes it. Is one of the controversies is that it's another Caucasian male being brought in to oversee something. And, there are people who justifiably wanted to see a person of color or a woman brought into the Star Wars film, or a woman of color brought into the Star Wars fold to kind of run things. And I'm on board with that. I absolutely want to see that. I think Jon Favreau is great, and I absolutely want to see what he's going to do with it. But I think that he's going to bring in that kind of talent. I think he's going to bring in diverse talent, and that's what I want to. And if that doesn't happen, then I'll be the first one saying, "Hey, what the hell's going on?" But at the same time, I want to give it a chance because I'm a fan of the man. I'm a fan of the man's work. I think he can do a great job, and he's also expressed his excitement. I mean, he's literally talked about working with Lucasfilm. He said, "If you told me at 11 years old I'd be getting to tell stories in the Star Wars universe, I wouldn't have believed you. I can't wait to embark upon this exciting adventure." So he released that in a statement because he's a fan. He's a fan just like the rest of us. So if a fan can get in the door and get behind the scenes and start making some things happen for us, as fans, I'm on board. Now, what I really want to know is kind of what stories he's going to tell. Like, if anything, I want to know, is he going to go Old Republic? Is he going to go expanded universe? Is it going to be in time between? Is it going to be offshoots of stories? That's the kind of the test of where he's going. But I'm on board with his vision. I want to see where it goes. So I reported on the acquisition of the Valiant imprint by Sony and their plans to bring the characters to the big screen. Now, this week, Deadline confirmed that process began, and which means that, and also we got news that Vin Diesel has joined a Valiant imprint movie, and he will be playing Bloodshot. Now, Dave Wilson's going to make his feature film debut with a project, and it's a script by Eric Heiser, who wrote Arrival, and it's produced by Tim Miller, who is the director of the first Deadpool movie. So, according to the article, the film is going to have like the same tone and action of like 80s films like RoboCop and Total Recall. So that's it's an interesting premise. The only thing I'll say is that outside of comic book circles, I don't know how many people know who Bloodshot is as a character. Now, I'm just going to give you like some of the broad strokes. I mean, his real name is Ray Garrison. He's a soldier. He's killed in action, brought back to life by experimental technology by a group called Project Rising Spirit. He's injected with nanites that heal him from any wound and also give him superhuman strength, speed, agility, and endurance. And what's interesting in the comics is that it also gives him secondary powers like the ability to alter his physical form and shapeshift, which makes him like a really good spy and assassin. Now, he also kind of deals with like having his memory erased multiple times, and what happens when he actually regains his memory is part of the drama of the series. Now, again, if you don't know anything about the character, I don't know necessarily how hype you're going to be for the movie, but at the same time, it could be something that, really something new and unusual, something that no one's seen before, and could effectively be a really great film. Now, speaking of characters who didn't come from the big two, and like DC and Marvel, and found an audience just based on being good, Relatively Media and Sony are in gear with a new director, with Corin Hardy to direct The Crow, starring Jason Momoa, who's going to be in Aquaman. Now, the reboot of The Crow is being said to be a more faithful adaptation of James O'Barr's 1989 classic story, and it's going to focus on Eric Draven, who's murdered along with his fiance and brought back to life to avenge their deaths. There's been a couple other casting announcements. I don't have them at this point. I probably will write about them once more casting news has come out. But right now, I mean, the fact that you've got Jason Momoa kind of as the lead is going to bring like a certain kind of hype to it. Now, what's interesting is that one person who's not on board with it is Alex Proyas, who directed the original film starring Brandon Lee, who tragically passed during the filming. Now, normally, if someone has been on board with the project before, they'll usually kind of back off a little bit, and they say, well, it's not my vision, but we'll see how it goes. They'll be a little bit more a little bit more diplomatic. But Proyas has actually kind of made his feelings known about it. I mean, he literally said, and I'm quoting the man himself. He said, "The Crow would not be a movie worth remaking if it wasn't for Brandon Lee," which I completely agree. He wrote this in a statement. He said, "If it wasn't for Brandon, you may never have even heard of this poignant little underground comic." Again, I agree. I remember it as a comic fan. I bought it as a comic fan. I read it as a comic fan. But there are a lot of people who discovered it after the movie came out. And he goes on to say that it is Brandon's movie, and I believe it is a special case where Hollywood should just let it remain a testament to a man's immense talent and ultimate sacrifice, and not have others rewrite that story or add to it. So I know sequels were made and TV shows and what have you, but the notion of rebooting this story and the original character, a character Brandon gave life to at too high a cost, seems wrong to me. I mean, that's it's an honest assessment, and I applaud him for saying it, for just kind of being out there and saying what he and saying the truth in his words. But at the same time, I love the story. I'm excited to kind of see what they do with it. I want to see how Jason Momoa brings the character to life. I still want to see it made, and I'm willing to take the Brandon Lee aspect out of it and just kind of see it as The Crow. Now, it's going to be made because it does have a release date. It's got a release date of October 11th, 2019. So, getting into TV news soon, but the last story I'm going to talk about in the movie news is about Spike Lee. Now, this is according to multiple reports. Luke Cage series creator and executive producer Chio Hodori Coker has written a script for a movie based on a kind of a lesser known Spider-Man character named Nightwatch, and it's being reported that Spike Lee is in talks to direct the film version. Now, if you don't know anything about Nightwatch, I mean, he was first introduced in Web of Spider-Man in 1993. He's the Nightwatch's code name for Dr. Kevin Trench. Just the little slight backstory on him is that after witnessing a costume hero killed in a battle with terrorists, Trench moves in, he removes the mask and sees that it's his future self. When he finally reluctantly puts on the suit, it gives him superhuman strength, speed, agility, and the ability to become invisible as well as shapeshift. Now, character-wise, he never really made much of an impact in the Marvel Universe, so I don't particularly know why they're going with a film version. The other thing is, like, just visually, he always kind of looked like, I'll be honest with you, he looked like Spawn. And Spawn came out at the same time. In fact, I think Spawn came out earlier. But he looked like Spawn. He had that kind of exaggerated 90s look to him, and I think he just looked too much like Spawn, and especially the fact that he was a black man. He looked too much like Spawn for me to just kind of get on board with the character. So I don't know, maybe they'll revamp it. Maybe I'm sure Spike will bring something new and different to the table. I mean, if he gets on board with it. is just one of those characters where it's just a little out of the gate, little esoteric. It's somebody I wouldn't necessarily expect. So, who knows? So, the last piece of movie news is, now this is according to an exclusive article in Deadline. Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key are going to return, going to work together again. So this is Keegan-Michael Key, and I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. Oscar winner Jordan Peele. They're going to be working together in a stop motion animated feature from Nightmare Before Christmas and James the Giant Peach director Henry Selick. The movie is titled Wendell and Wild. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to lend their voices to the lead characters, and the characters being described as a pair of scheming demon brothers. Now, this is going to be the first time the two of them have worked together since Keanu in 2016. Peele's successful and critically acclaimed first film, Get Out. Jordan Peele is currently working on a reboot of The Twilight Zone, and Keegan-Michael Key can next be seen in Shane Black's The Predator, as well as lending his voice to Disney's live-action adaptation of The Lion King. So, getting into TV news, Lost in Space. Netflix is bringing back Lost in Space. It's going to be a new version of Lost in Space. Everything I've seen, it looks really good. Just video-wise, the special effects and the new robot looks really intriguing. Like everything about it just looks amazing to me. And I'm a huge fan of the original. Like I love, and I'm talking the original like 60s era TV show. Now it was before my time, but I caught it in reruns, and it was always one of my favorite shows. Now it stars Toby Stephens from Black Sails as John Robinson, Molly Parker from Deadwood and House of Cards as Maureen Robinson, and their kids are Taylor Russell from Falling Skies playing Judy. Freeheld's Mina Sunwall is going to be playing Penny, and Sense8's Max Jenkins is going to be playing Will Robinson. And the robot looks like he's going to be an alien, so that looks interesting to me as well. But one of the biggest things that's interesting to me is that they've cast Parker Posey from A Mighty Wind is playing Dr. Smith. So it looks interesting. Like if you go to superpoweredfancast.com and check out the trailer and tell me what you think, because I think it looks really great. And again, I'm on board. So the next thing in TV, and this is actually something I find really funny, is there's going to be, I've written about this before, there's going to be a Scooby Doo episode of Supernatural. And I know those two things don't sound like they go together, but the way they've brought it together on the CW, it looks really interesting. So if you go to superpoweredfancast.com, you can actually see the trailer for the episode titled Scooby Natural. And what happens is that in this episode you got Sam, played by Jared Padalecki, and Dean, played by Jensen Ackles. They find themselves in a new world during the course of an investigation. Like they get sucked into a classic episode of Scooby Doo, where everything just gets a lot darker. So I'm definitely on board with this. I'm always been a little hit or miss with Supernatural, but this episode's definitely one I'm going to check out just for nostalgia purposes. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about is a new podcast. And as a person who does podcasts, I do podcasts because I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I love putting my voice out there, but at the same time, I love listening to new and creative ventures. And as a comic book fan and a podcast fan, this one just kind of hits on all cylinders. And it's Marvel's Wolverine, The Long Night. Now, this is a anthology podcast that's actually in the form of a radio play. So you have multiple actors in playing the roles. You have background effects and things of that nature. It's like being in an immersive play, where where you basically you're creating it in your own mind. And they've cast Richard Armitage as is playing Logan. And if you don't know who he is, he was Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit movies. And it's really great. The first two episodes are available on Stitcher, but it is like a premium series, so you will have to pay to pay for Stitcher Premium or Howl Premium in order to get the rest of the episodes. So that's it for me. I really, again, appreciate everyone who watches the videos, who goes to the website. If you want to read stories about these stories and see the videos and trailers, you can go to superpoweredfancast.com. That's where I have new content daily. That's where I put comic book reviews, movie reviews, television reviews, like any news articles from the geek world, from the world of comics and movies and television. I put all of that there. And just go to superpowerfancast.com. You can subscribe so you can get news updates when they're posted. But also you can find other news items and reviews on Geeks Worldwide at thegww.com. You can always follow me on Twitter at superpoweredfan. And again, for Superpowered Fancast, once again, I really appreciate everyone who listens, everyone who watches on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and look up Superpowered Fancast, you can find our weekly video podcast or videocast, as well as our Fancast Comic Forum, which is a weekly show where we talk about the news in the comic book industry, as well as reviews of the comics that came out that week. So for Superpower Fancast, this is Darren, signing off.